In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created light and land. He created plants, the celestial lights, and a menagerie of animals. With just a word, He created man out of the dust of the ground. God created this universe intricately and more complex than anyone can fully imagine. He created both the world we see and the world unseen. Of course, the world unseen includes the angels and His heavenly dwelling place. But a little closer to home, the unseen world used to include all the microorganisms we now know about. The ones that crawl in our sponges, make our gut their home, and help maintain our ecosystem. There's a difference between the world we see when we look outside and the microscopic world existing under our noses. We can see an individual who is sick, and we see red eyes, a runny nose, and a miserable disposition. We see a newborn baby, and we know his life originated somewhere within the woman's womb. We can see we have to have enough air in order to stay alive. It's for this reason we don't survive by inhaling water or toxic gas. The naked eye, however, cannot perceive the bacteria infecting the human body, causing sickness. It cannot detect the male sperm that contains half of the baby's genetic information. Even the red blood cells flowing within our circulatory system, the oxygen transporters keeping the human body alive, would be undetectable without a special magnifying instrument. Today we know this magnifying instrument to be the microscope. It's found in places of education, places of discovery. Zacharias Janssen is accredited with inventing the first ever microscope back in the 1590s. People think he probably created this wonderful device in his teenage years. His father probably lent him a hand. Janssen was a very intelligent scientist who lived in a fairly cold part of the world. I mean, this could be why he had such a groundbreaking discovery. Perhaps he had a lot of time on his hands having to stay indoors. Janssen's microscope was made of 3 tubes fitted within one another, with a lens on each end. This small device paved the way for other men to make their own discoveries within the microscopic world. 2 of the prominent men were Robert Hooke and Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. We'll look at both of these men in turn. Robert Hooke was a Dutch man, like Zacharias Janssen. He was made famous for publishing his scientific findings in 1665 in a book called Micrographia. He built his own microscope and used it to analyze slices of bark from an oak tree. When he looked through this microscope, he discovered plant cells for the very first time. About 7 years later, a man named Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, a linen maker of all things, developed his own version of the microscope. He handcrafted the lenses for his microscope and was able to harness the power of 300 times magnification. Wow! With this amount of magnification, he discovered single-cell organisms and could even identify their various structures. He was not a trained scientist, so he described his findings as would a 10-year-old. He found little animals in various liquids when looking at samples under his microscope. We now know these little animals to be protozoa, or single-celled eukaryotes. He was also the first to discover bacteria, some of which he described as little eels. Along with these, Leeuwenhoek discovered spermatozoa and described their structure intricately. Finally, and very noteworthy, he is known for his extensive observation and documentation of red blood cells. He was an enthusiast, to say the least, doing research spanning across the medical sciences with desires to formulate answers to the many questions that apparently haunted him. These discoveries, made back in the late 1500s through the 1600s, changed science forever. We now know red blood cells are crucial to an individual's health. Here are some examples. Anemia is caused when individuals do not have enough of these red blood cells. Thalassemia is an inherited disease causing the body to create abnormal hemoglobin levels, making the red blood cells incapable of carrying oxygen. Yet another disease can occur if the biconclave form of the red blood cells is altered through a disease called sickle cell anemia. An individual will experience painful clotting, and organ damage will result from the lack of blood flow. Thanks to the discovery of bacteria, there is much better disease control than they could have fathomed in the Middle Ages. We now know it's not safe to eat raw chicken, it's important to wash our hands regularly, and it's imperative to use sterilized tools in the operating room. In developed countries, infections are easily treated with antibiotics, and people understand how to avoid transmitting infections. The microscope has come a long way since the 1590s. Today, there are still compound microscopes like the one Janssen designed. There are also dissection microscopes, confocal microscopes, scanning electron microscopes, the transmission electron microscopes. The world suddenly got a lot bigger. Well, actually, we're just able to see the smaller things in life, but you know what I mean. Without the microscope, scientists would have never discovered the beauty of cell division, neurotransmission, cellular respiration, or embryonic development. Advancements like in vitro fertilization, stem cell therapy, and pharmaceutical drugs have changed the world, and these would not have been imagined if the microscope had not been invented. The world we know today wouldn't be the same without the discoveries of men like Janssen, Hooke, and Leeuwenhoek. The unperceivable life around us can now be studied, cures for disease can be explored and applied, and modern medicine can continue to improve thanks to the world met under